Boiler Upload podcasts are brought to you by Reindeer Shuttle. We know driving to the airport sucks. Let Reindeer Shuttle do it for you. With 5 daily trips to Indianapolis International Airport and 3 to Chicago's O'Hare International Airport, they can do the driving for you from Purdue. With multiple pickup points on campus, they'll take you where you need to go. That's reindeershuttle.com for booking information.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a bit of a hybrid podcast today. You might recognize my voice, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you might recognize my face. I'm Andrew Ledman from hammerandrails.com.
And I'm Casey Bartley from Boiler Upload Rivals Network.
And we're here because we got some breaking news about 2-3 hours ago that Purdue's kind of blue chip, big name recruit, Kanon Catchings, is no longer going to be enrolling at Purdue. Was asked for his release from his national letter of intent, and head coach Matt Painter granted it. So we will not get to see him play in the old gold and black. Casey, what's your initial reaction to this news?
Well, as I always say in life, you can't catch them all.
Yeah, and if Pokemon has taught us nothing,
can't do it.
You just can't.
It's so weird because like this is the week of Indiana All-Stars, right? So like I'm watching Aaron Fine and Jack Benner. I'm talking to them yesterday, and they're literally describing moving into the house. And the house is Aaron Fine, Jack Benner, Miles Colvin, Kanon Catchings. And I think I might be missing a name. But literally Saturday, these guys moved their stuff into their first freshman house, apartment, whatever it is. I'm guessing 5 guys, it's a house. It's probably not an apartment.
I would assume.
I would decommit from Purdue if it was 4 freshmen in an apartment.
Yeah, one tiny apartment. That'd be tough.
Yeah. I think it's like it's sad, right? Because Kanon Catchings is such an outlier for Purdue. Part of this whole thing that was so exciting is he is such a blend of all the things that work at Purdue, but in a 6'9" super athletic body.
Right.
And the way he's able to move and attack, and he was going to be a very important piece for this offense, for this team, even defensively, I think, because of the way he can rebound, the way he can defend multiple levels. He is a superstar, borderline 5-star talent. And we're like 3 days away from college basketball starting.
Yeah, I mean, it starts on Monday, right?
Yeah, the practices start next week. So the timing of this is
both good and bad. There's good to it and bad.
So that's kind of that's the real answer, right? Because like it's surprising for timing. Mm-hmm. It's not surprising. Yeah. I don't think either of us are shocked to hear that things didn't work out well with Kanon Catchings from everything we've heard.
Yeah, I mean, he had about a year ago the issue where there was about a bunch of smoke about he decommitted and he wasn't going to come. It was like he was involved with USA Basketball at the time, but apparently then there was a phone call between him and Painter, or him and Painter and his parents, or something to that effect. And they kind of firmed that thing up, and it was always kind of touch and go as to whether he would sign, but he signed his national letter of intent along with the rest of the incoming class. So it was one of those like, whoo, we made it, because it's so rare that you see people get out of their national letters of intent. They can certainly transfer after a year. They can leave the team. They can do whatever. But to get out of your national letter of intent is so rare in college basketball and college football.
Yeah, it's because it's like, it was obviously a toxic situation in some capacity between the two. At least that's kind of the metaphor to make, because like clearly there were issues. You don't get to the point of decommitting, and like those conversations happened. It wasn't just smoke. And so when that happens, there's obviously some difference between the player and the family. And I want to be careful, because like it's very easy to go from we've all brushed under the things we've heard, issues of possible things, and now that he's not Purdue, now that he's not who we're covering, it's like, oh well, it's time to air all the grievances. And like it's not that. It's an 18-year-old kid, but like there were signs that he wasn't thrilled about going into something that he committed in at a very early, like young age. That it's very clear his family wanted him to go to Purdue.
Right. Right.
And if they weren't such an influence and like been there, done that, like the Kanon Catchings and all that, like
Yeah.
they are not unfamiliar with this process, and they believed in handling Kanon, and like the way Purdue staff dealt with him is part of why they wanted him to go there, because there were some maturity issues, there were some anger issues or stuff like that. And they were really happy with the way Purdue was handling that.
Yeah, I
And
think that says a lot about not just Matt Painter, but the rest of the basketball staff and how well they handle these players. Because I've said it a number of times, and I think you would agree. I can't imagine going out on the road and trying to recruit, 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-olds and have it be such a big part of my job that, like, if I don't get these kids to come make a life-altering decision, I could lose my job. I mean, it must just be maddening to do. And as you said, he committed young. I don't even remember how old he was, 16 maybe?
yeah, it was, yeah.
But it's, you see, we posted on Hammer and Rails. I put it on our Twitter account, our Facebook page, and I went through to kind of look at the comments to try to kind of make sure no one was saying anything out of pocket, because it is the internet. And you see a certain subset of fan is like, well, good riddance. We didn't need him or whatever. And I understand the idea of a fan to be like, oh, well, if he doesn't want to be here, I don't want him.
Right.
And there's certainly some truth to that. But me personally, I would rather have a, really great player who might only be here 1 year and then go to the NBA on my team. I would rather have him on my team, because I think Painter and staff can find a way to make him work within the system. But, maybe that ultimately was not something that they believed they could do together, and they've mutually parted ways.
Yeah, because it's even more than that. Like on a human level, you want it to work out, because you're like, whatever issues were there, hopefully they get ironed out, and like it's a growing up process, and this is hard, and like everyone wanted the best for both parties.
Yeah.
And up until a few days ago, that seemed like it was going to be an on-court thing. There's going to be a lot of speculation. I imagine slowly through the next few weeks, there might be a story or two breaks out. Like, he's on campus now. They've got the stuff. Like, did something flare up? Was it personal? Was it not a big deal? Was it a conversation that didn't go in a certain way? And then, or was it, I think we've both probably made choices that we weren't that thrilled about. And there's a fight or flight moment right before, like, the very last instant that you can eject from something.
Yeah.
And this is
You're
literally that.
If I don't do this now, I'm stuck in it forever.
And so at some point when you pull that cord, like there's no subtlety to it. It's just like, the regret is I wish I would have, he probably wishes he would have stuck with
a year ago.
Decommitting a year ago. And now he just got to the point where like, whoa, this is real. My stuff is in that room. Right. I don't like that. And then also it could just turn out to be someone wanted to give him $5 million.
Yeah. And that's just what we don't know in this new world of NIL, which, by the way, very frustrating that NIL and NLI are so, close and so important in college sports. But we all sit here as 30-plus-year-olds who cover Purdue, and we pretend like we know, oh, he's a bad kid, he's making bad decisions, he does this, does that. Everything this kid has done for the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years of his life has been scrutinized, because he's going to be a great basketball player, because he's got a body to be a basketball player. He's got bloodlines, of family members that were great basketball players. A high ceiling, I think, is what you're pointing to.
Bloodline.
I don't know what you're. Oh, bloodline.
Recognizing.
I was like, I didn't know what you're doing. Yeah. And imagine if you could go back in time and every move you made, every decision you made had been scrutinized and recorded. I mean, people were sharing videos on our Twitter timeline of, oh, here's this one-on-one game, he was playing at Overtime Elite, and he was talking trash, and he was kind of jawing with his coach, and people were like, I don't want this guy here. It's like, he's practicing. Of course he's gonna, get a little attitude and have some, a little bit of sauce, if that's a throwback for you from Purdue. But we all were young once. We all made stupid decisions. We all did stupid things. Thank goodness ours weren't always on camera. And thank goodness we weren't athletes that were heavily recruited, so people cared what we said. I mean, it makes a difference.
And it wouldn't matter anyway, because like fans are going to fan. There was no choice at any point that he wasn't going to get yelled at from one end. And that's the problem with being not having a school tied down, is that all the fans chirp at you both ways. I think you mentioned it earlier. This is the best time for it, not the best time for it to happen, but like at least it happens right before they'll have a whole summer to figure it out. Because the other end of this is like a lot of the optimism for Purdue as a product for Matt Painter is Kanon Catchings was a real special guy that could do a lot of things off the ball really well, with the ball really well, moves in a certain way without giving up size or athleticism that I think this team did need. And we're talking, we don't have a scholarship
problem anymore. Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah. It's really solved the problem for us. So thanks for that one. With this in mind, we always knew, or we always thought, Catchings was going to be a key component of this Purdue team. He was going to play probably a lot of minutes. Who does this open opportunity up for the most on this Purdue squad?
Yeah, I think the obvious answers are Heidi and Colvin, because I think if you're talking about Catchings had the size of both of those guys,
right,
while maybe having a little more life on offense, a little more fluid, a little more just natural score than either of them. And I think now those two are both set to play. There was a world before where one of them could get put to the bench or lose 10 minutes a night. I don't think there's now any real way you make this lineup without them getting 28, 30 minutes a game.
That's a lot.
I just think you need their shooting, their size, their athleticism. I think, they can play 2, 3, 4. So the fact that they are so big for their size, so skilled, I think they're going to play a lot. I think, I don't know if we said it on air during this, but like there was, you could talk me into a future where Fletcher Lawyer lost some minutes to Kanon Catchings at the 2. Because I think Catchings was offensively, I think he could play the 2. I think he could do everything that Painter asked of his 2s. And the other one is true freshman Jakari Harris. Because he will play the 2, 3. He'll be in the Lance Jones role. Okay. Smaller guard, but he can play with Braden. He can play with Fletch. He can play with them both at the same time. It probably opens up. It possibly opens up for CJ Cox or Jack Benner to maybe not redshirt.
I don't know.
I wouldn't. I get it. But now you're looking at a backcourt of you got Braden, you got Fletcher, you got Jakari. Natural ball handlers, you don't really have another one.
True.
So,
but I mean, you got to think, how many minutes is Smith going to get? So, how often are you going to take him off the floor? Because Cox is the other point guard, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So, unless he can play the 2, I'm not sure how much use he would get if he does not redshirt. But it's a balancing act now at this point. I think the only player I didn't really hear you mention was Brian Waddell. I mean, do we think this gives him any opportunity? Just one less guy he's got to go through? I mean,
I've not seen anything from Waddell that makes me think he could be anything. I think if he was going to be useful on a Purdue team, it would be as kind of a stretch 4.
Yeah. And
there's just not minutes there. So Catchings leaving, in theory, Catchings could take some minutes at the 4, but I think you're still talking, Trey Kaufman-Wren, Caleb First are both there. Wilberg is in theory there. Daniel Jacobson's going to play. I think we've had some conversations where I said I'm not sure where Berg's lineup is, but I think Jacobson could play from day one.
Yeah, I mean, you talked
Nothing
about that all the way back when you and I were at the Maryland game.
Yeah, so like there's nothing is happening on the Team USA team that makes me think that's not even more likely now.
Right.
And then I think you talk about Miles Colvin and Camden Heide, both capable of playing 4. Now, in theory, Waddell's not had a chance. He hasn't had a chance since his freshman year, and he wasn't really recovered. There's certainly, yes, it does open a door. I think you're right. I think there is a door that opens, especially if he's a little more mobile and can play the 3. There's possibly minutes at the 3 or 4, but I don't think it's a ton still.
I don't think so either, but I just mention him because he was really the one player kind of in that mix that you didn't touch on. So I wanted to make sure we did that at least. But the only player I would mention there that you talked about, Caleb First has to step up if he wants minutes. He obviously, we know he did not have the season he wanted to last year, and we don't know why that was, lost in the shuffle, not getting the minutes so you couldn't get a rhythm. I don't know. But there is a spot there, depending on how Matt Painter wants to play now without Zach Edey, as to how the roles are going to be shifted. I mean, Braden Smith, we know, is going to get all the minutes he can handle. Fletcher Lawyer probably also going to get all the minutes he can handle.
Jakari is probably
Trey
in that
Kaufman
boat too.
Well, Trey Kaufman-Renn also. I mean, are you going to stick with him at the 4, or are you going to play him at the 5 if Berg doesn't work out, or if Jacobson isn't exactly where you need him? And then if you move TKR to the 5, what does that do to the 4? I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces. And this just makes it a little more complicated because everybody thought Catchings was going to come in and play a lot of minutes. So now you got a lot of minutes open.
Yeah, and Catchings is like an elite rebounder.
Which is what Purdue needs now.
Yeah, there was supposed to be they were going to have rim protection at like 3 or 4 positions without a Zach Edey level like rim protector. They were going to have a lot of athleticism and length on the wings, weirdly, that could almost act as a deterrent at the rim. That becomes much less without Catchings, because Catchings was a 6'9" guy who could jump out of the gym.
Yeah.
Now you're not doing that. And now that will definitely, I think Caleb First is probably the one that this makes more pivotal for Purdue. I think a lot of the season, a lot of the defense that Purdue is going to need is going to rely on either Caleb First needs to have a bounce back, because he did it for 2 years.
Oh yeah, for
freshman,
sure.
sophomore year, like he was really good. He needs to find that again, or Daniel Jacobson, it's just going to play a lot.
Yeah.
And I think Jacobson's game operates in a way that will allow him and Trey to play together. And Trey can just be the 5 on offense and be inside without sharing the space like he had to with Edey.
Yeah, all last year.
And then on defense, put him on whoever. Like, I think there is a matchup there that I like on the court a lot. But the ceiling of this team took a big hit today.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And I think that's the dawning sadness a little bit, because just like as a Purdue fan, you're like, what a run last year. By the way, we got a couple sneaky freshmen that are really showing out, and then Catchings could be a guy like good enough to elevate this team to another level. Now it's like, okay, the pieces are still there, but now we need Miles Colvin to do it. Now they need, Camden Heide to take a big step. Fletcher Lawyer's got to take a big step. And the defense has to be a lot better than what it was without Edey on the floor last year.
Right.
And that's harder without Catchings.
Yeah, for sure. So as you said, ceiling comes down just a little bit on this. We both think the floor is still pretty high on this team. A lot of talent. It's just a matter of, you're bringing in now 5 new freshmen, and it's a matter of figuring out where they all go, if they're going to redshirt, who's going to redshirt, who's going to
now they got to pay more rent too. Ever lose a roommate like before you even start the lease?
Right. Yeah. I wonder if he's on that lease. If he's on that lease, it's not on them. If it's a separate lease, he's got to pay.
Yeah, I'm adding that. I'm adding that to my NIL deal wherever I end
Yeah.
up. And I got an apartment I got to pay for in West Lafayette.
That's right. I'm going to need you to send them, $400 a month for the next year.
You think there's someone on the Purdue team eyeing that spot? Like,
oh yeah,
I couldn't in with the cool kids earlier. You got a room available now?
Somebody's gonna go knock on the door today. Be like, hey guys, so I heard you need a new roommate. I don't know if you know. I got a big TV. It's pretty good. It's like 75 inches. Ooh. It's pretty great. So you just kind of slide right in there, bring his PS5 and a TV. Gonna be great for him, whoever that is. Yeah. So keep an eye on that for us and let us know who the new roommate is. It's gonna be big breaking news. So, I mean, I think that's just gonna cover it here. Really interesting development for Purdue. As you said, lowers the ceiling, but we're still excited. We're still going to cover Purdue next season. Look forward to the offseason. We'll see where it goes. So for Casey and myself, thanks so much, folks. Boiler up.
Peace.